Greetings and welcome to my presentation on my dissertation, Why I Stay, a qualitative appreciative inquiry study exploring teacher longevity in an urban educational setting. To introduce the study, I wanted to examine the problem of teacher attrition, especially in urban environments. As a high school teacher in an urban educational setting, I had a particular interest in this as I see so many of my colleagues leaving and I see the harm that it does to students. I opted to use an appreciative inquiry approach. Appreciative inquiry is of great interest to me because it is really growing in popularity in the world of business. So basically, appreciative inquiry says, let's look at what's working well in an organization and then replicate it throughout the organization and even other organizations. So instead of examining deficits, it's looking at what is actually working because there's always some kind of gold to be harvested. With that in mind, I created the problem statement, teacher turnover in urban schools occurring at a higher rate than suburban and rural counterparts has great negative effects, and thus the purpose of this case study was to discover what was working well for teachers who sustain employment for 5 years or more in an urban educational setting. And then a sub-purpose was to dig into the pedagogical and philosophical underpinnings that cause their lived experiences to be successful in these settings. My key questions were, how do teachers who have sustained lasting careers in urban educational settings approach their work? How do teachers philosophically approach their work? And what are their pedagogical approaches? Data was collected through semi-structured interviews with teachers who had provided more than 5 years of service in an urban educational setting. The literature revealed that teacher turnover, as I suspected, is higher in urban schools than in suburban and rural environments. Also, the literature revealed key findings regarding student experiences, student-teacher relationships, race and intersectionality as a factor, specific teacher retention factors in various schools in urban settings, characteristics of teachers such as resilience and adaptability, teacher beliefs and thinking patterns, secondary trauma, and vicarious trauma among teachers, and that included compassion fatigue, which came out later in the research, school and classroom climate, community schools in an urban setting as a structure, and then inclusive educational practices for students with disabilities and other unique needs. My methodology was a constructivist, qualitative, appreciative inquiry approach. If we were really being true to the appreciative inquiry model, we were in the discovery phase. So in the discovery phase, you're trying to uncover what is working well so that you can apply it to the remainder of the organization. I used non-directive interviewing and field tests for reliability. So I had some respondents participate who did not have 5 years in the field, but they still provided answers to the questions, just so I could make sure the questions were quality prior to applying them with my subjects. I used in vivo to analyze the data, and it revealed 15 codes nested into 4 themes. I then harvested quotes to support each code and each theme. Some limitations, of course, with qualitative data is I was in one specific setting and I used a small sample size of 9 teachers. And then I also engaged in member checking, so all participants were able to review their own data and make revisions prior to the use of the data in the dissertation. All right, the key findings, the fun part. So the first finding was that teachers share a deep care and concern for student success and well-being. Teachers have a passion for content area and innovative pedagogy. Teachers are dedicated to a supportive learning environment, and teachers shared some personal qualities attuned to urban settings. The overarching theme was, my work will make a difference. So just to break that down, the first theme focused on teachers who are committed to the success of their students, who build relationships, who work for equity, who feel joy in watching their students grow, and who really find purpose in transformative student moments. Passion for content area included passion for subject, instructional strategies rooted in collaboration and innovation, engaging pedagogical practices, and a lifelong passion for teaching. Dedication to a supportive learning environment also involved relationships and trust, a safe, supportive environment, instructional strategies rooted in collaboration. So you can see that some of the codes were nested under multiple themes. Support for urban education, overcoming challenges, and a deep value for diversity and representation. And then finally, the personal qualities that teachers shared were a commitment to student success, personal connection to urban education, a philosophy of growth and flexibility, overcoming challenges, that joy in watching students grow, valuing diversity and representation, and again, a lifelong passion for teaching. Significance and impact would be, as I said, now that we've uncovered these themes of what makes a teacher satisfied in their work, what helps them stay in their work in an urban environment, how could we replicate that across systems? And I'm very excited to share that my study yielded this framework. So this framework could be applied across educational settings. It shows that at the heart of everything, most all of the subjects share the belief that their work will make a difference. And from that, the other 4 themes kind of expanded on that idea that this is how I'm making a difference. So when teachers don't feel that they're making a difference anymore, that's where they fall into cynicism, hopelessness, and end up leaving the profession. So it's very important that principals and teachers alike are able to cultivate that sense among teachers that their work is having a positive impact on students. Finally, I'm also excited to celebrate that my study ended up becoming a book published by Routledge, Taylor & Francis. It expands on the study and also incorporates more vignettes and specifically applicable practices for the classroom. It's called Why We Stay, The Teacher's Guide to Resilience and Longevity in Education. It is available through Routledge.com, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com if you have more interest in this material. And here are my references. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you learn how to stay and enjoy teaching from my research.